Hi, my name is Richard Bilderbeek and I'm going to talk about user documentation. And this presentation, you can download it here. It's public domain because I care more about the content than it being attributed to me. So with user documentation, the goal of this talk is to show off something we do at SCORE. And that is the user documentation of the UpMax HPC clusters at this URL. And I'll tell you about SCORE and UpMax, but this is the front page of our documentation and already see 4 things I'm proud of. At the top right, you see we are connected to GitHub. You'll see in my talk this is very influential for us, especially to talk about our users. Second, we have a search box. And I say this may seem funny, why does he mention a search box? It's because not all HPC centers, so an HPC center means high performance computing, centers that have a computer cluster that Swedish scientists can use. Not all of them have a search box. Third thing I'm very proud of is, of course, we try to seduce our users to read the documentation of our clusters. If not, the first thing they'll see is a button to get support. If even support, and this is the fourth thing, if even support is not good enough or they are very happy about support, they can always give anonymous feedback at this button, ensuring that the users get heard, and this anonymous feedback is published publicly. So my talk is to show off something we do at SCORE, which is the user documentation of our HPC clusters at this URL. But first, let's take a step back. What is SCORE? So SCORE is part of NBIS and it's an abbreviation of Support for Computational Resources. And we like HPC clusters a lot because computational resources, these often are HPC clusters, so people can get their heavy calculations done or calculations that need a lot of storage done or storing a lot of data on. So we support our users in finding those resources and we help them use it. And here we see, for example, a human meddling with an HPC cluster. This is how these look like. These are 2 backsides of HPC clusters. I don't know which one it is, but they look like this. So that's what SCORE does. We help our users, can also be colleagues, to find the computational resources they need. And we do this in 3 ways. First way is we support them using our documentation. So here we see a documentation of UpMax, which are the HPC clusters in Uppsala. And first I want to point out the 5th thing that makes me proud. And this is this little button here, this pictogram of a paper with a pen in front of it. This is an edit button. So that means this allows anybody to suggest changes to our documentation. So if a user finds something that's off or weird or can be improved, they can even suggest to edit our documentation easily. There's no technical knowledge involved in this. You need to just click some green buttons and you've done it. You do need a GitHub account though. But still, it proves that we care what our users think. So back to our documentation. So within SCORE, we help our users use HPC clusters, help them find them, but especially using HPC clusters. Those are complex machines, so we write documentation for them. And this Bianca is an example of an HPC cluster. But sometimes users want a learning environment to learn how to understand how things work that are in the documentation. And of course, for that we have courses. So here, these courses are also on our website. And sure, we provide those courses. But still, maybe that may not be enough. Maybe our documentation not good enough. Maybe our courses did not work out well enough for some of our users, or maybe they all did, but they run into something harder or undocumented. Then they can always write a ticket to us, so they can do support tickets. This is how our system looks like. It's called RT, which is short for request tracker, and here we have some example tickets. This is how it looks like. It's not relevant what these are. So these are the 3 ways in which we as SCORE support our users for their computational resources. And I already wanted to show off something we do at our what we do at SCORE, I wanted to show off something, and I want to show off our user documentation. Because our user documentation shows, and I'll try to prove this to you, or I'll try to convince you of this, is that we care about quality and efficiency and our users. And now I'll be zooming in a bit on some facets of our documentation and trying to convince you that these are true. So first I want to tell you what is the main driver behind of this. And the main driver is that we started using documentation in our courses. That documentation, our user documentation, was used as course material. And this is the old workflow. So in the old workflow, these errors are quite weak. So like a couple of years ago, sure, we have our documentation, and sure, we have courses, but courses sometimes explain better how to do things that should be in the documentation. These were like two separate things. Sometimes it was better documented at our user documentation, sometimes it was documented better at our courses, and these were two individual worlds. Also, when our users create a ticket, then sometimes we updated the documentation, sometimes not, sometimes we just sent them a reply with something we write down, and that's it, without updating our documentation. So taking a look at this old workflow, we see documentation at the bottom. Nowadays you'll see documentation is way more connected. This is how it looks like now. So at the heart of our new workflow is our documentation. A lot of errors go in and out. And so the core thing where it all started is documentation was used as literal course material in courses. So courses would no longer document what should be in the user documentation. Instead, courses referred to the user documentation. And due to that, if courses do that, then that user documentation must be good. And courses started improving our user documentation so that it can be used in courses. So this loop got way tighter. Also, now we're going to our users. Our users could create tickets. That was already the case. But these tickets are now way heavier used in the documentation. If there's a ticket pointing out something missing in the documentation, then this documentation is updated first and then used to solve that ticket by just sending a URL to our users like it's documented here. Please check if you can understand. But what also is new is that our users can create issues. And an issue is a term from GitHub, but also other coding hosts have that. It's like a bug tracker that is public. So if a user wants to have some public communication about something he or she needs or misses or complains about, or maybe compliments, he or she can create an issue and will definitely change our documentation based on it. But also users can now improve our documentation themselves. So you have seen already an edit button. So all pages have an edit button, but they can also do a so-called pull request in general and suggest changes themselves. Also, what is new is scripts. So because we are on GitHub, but you could use other code hosts too, we have so-called continuous integration scripts. And every time our documentation is updated, these scripts automatically check if our documentation is at a certain level of quality. And I'll talk about this whole tight workflow in a bit more detail, but I'll lift out certain facets on it. Not all of these errors I'll talk about, but I'll hope to show you some facets of this tight workflow. But first let's talk about our user documentation. And first we talk about the humans involved. So we have more than 8 contributors. This is listed on GitHub. There are more that don't show up for some reason. I don't know why. GitHub does not always display those things. We have quite some commits. We have reasonably much pull requests by multiple people, and these are all accepted. We tend to agree with the user. If something can be improved and he or she suggests this improvement, we will likely accept it. We use it actively, so we use issues. We also have a code of conduct a document on how to contribute so that people can predict if their work will be accepted if they make a pull request. And we have this place to give anonymous feedback. So that's the human aspect. The technical aspect is our content. It's a sizable piece. We have around 400 pages, 40,000 lines. And the 150 pages, those are the pages probably used in courses. They have search tags, so we optimize the search box. You see that top right, you see the search box. We optimize that search box so to be usable in courses. We use a lot of drop-down boxes. So here at the right you see a drop-down box saying prefer a video. These drop-down boxes, then they they drop down, and then you see a link to a video. We use this quite often. Images, we use them a lot. We have quite some internal linking. We use the Mermaid markup language for graphs. So here at the right you see a graph. This is made in Mermaid, which is a markup language, and this is how it looks like. And we also have quite some YouTube videos that are linked to by our documentation. This is to give you an idea of the size of our documentation. To check for a minimal level of quality, we have continuous integration scripts. And continuous integration scripts, that means scripts that are run every time a change is made to the documentation. Or in more technical terms, every commit, these are run. And this is technically not true, that's a bit more detail. I would say every time a change is made, all relevant scripts that have something to do with it, are triggered. So for example, our first script checks if all the URL links are valid. And I think this is a quite easy script to copy paste. I'm using it everywhere. And we at NBIS, we are good to be with computers. And we know things on the internet changes. So having a script to check if our links are still valid, if they are not broken, this is just showing an understanding of how things work and that we can do it. So, and this script is even scheduled every month just to make sure all the links are still up. It's quite humiliating when a user points out a broken link when we are supposedly good with computers. Additionally, we have a script that checks if the markdown, which is our markup language we use, if it follows the recommended style. And this prevents problems with saying how we should indent our stuff. We just follow the recommended style, the default style. But also, for example, if a link is incorrectly formatted, then it won't be, then this script will say, hey, this is a weird formatted thing. And then you have to fix that. And then suddenly it becomes a link, and then maybe the link checker says, oh, it was broken too, or it was correct. Also, we check for spelling. We have a spell checker. And of course, this also is not a perfect script either, but it gives us a minimum level of quality. And we have a script that automatically creates and deploys the website. And all these things, they pass. So these 4 scripts alone guarantee a certain minimum level of quality. But that's not enough. There are also things like issues. So here we have a GitHub issue, and I lifted out this one because it shows what happens if you start using user documentation in your courses. So here we have a user, which is a colleague in this case, and he says that WinSCP, whatever that is, looks very sad. It can take inspiration from FileZilla. And FileZilla is the one we use in courses, so this looks better. And WinSCP we don't use in courses, so it looks very sad. And I picked this issue to highlight because it shows you what happens to your pages when you use them in courses. So here we have the page about WinSCP, and the context, the content is not very important. What WinSCP is irrelevant, but we can see it's a wall of text, which is quite common if you look at other HPC centers, their documentation. And we do have the edit button still. And I would say that this is not even that bad compared to other centers. But again, this page is not used in courses. So this is like the minimal amount of quality our pages have. If you take a look at a page that is used in courses, this is FileZilla, whatever that is, the first thing you see there's an image, there's a drop-down box with a video, and there are also other drop-down boxes which mostly give either extra information or screenshots at every step. Oh, this is a procedure. This page shows a procedure like step 1, start FileZilla, step 2, blah blah. This page shows for each step a screenshot. If you can click on how does it look like, it's always there. You can see a screenshot, and it has a video too. And this video is made to check if the page is good. Like if in a video you cannot follow the procedure, then the procedures must be updated. So the video is a quality check of the procedure itself too. Alright, so those are already some feedback loops on having a video and a page on it. But just to show you the difference, so this page is used in courses, this page is not used in courses. This is what we see at other HPC centers, whereas this is what we see at UpMax, and I think we do great here. Also, what is quite efficient is our ticket system. So the content here is irrelevant. I just highlighted it. I just want to show a real ticket, but you don't need to read this. But so RT is request tracker. It's our ticket system. And a user had a question about something, and then I replied, well, go to this page in our documentation. There's also a video about this there, and if something's missing, please help me fix it. And the user said, no, that works great, thanks so much. So here we have another user of our documentation using it. I did not copy paste the answer here. I've redirected him or her to that page to make sure it's clear enough. Else he or she could have asked, hey, I don't get it, could you please add a video or something? But there was a video here. So I think what the facets I've shown you already, I think it shows we care about quality. Because with our continuous integration scripts, we detect as much mistakes as possible automatically. Like, this is not perfect, but it's a minimum amount of quality, and we are one of the few HPC centers in Sweden that have this. Also, our documentation is good enough to be used in courses. If you ever have written course material, you know it must be good. Else all our learners get stuck and you get a lot of questions and your course won't finish on time and you can't teach as much as you would like. Our documentation is even good enough to be used in courses. And by using them in courses, it ensures that it's kept up to date. Else, if our documentation gets out of date, it means it cannot be used in courses anymore, and people will say, hey, this doesn't work anymore. And then as a teacher you have a problem when that happens. So this is hoping to convince you that it shows we care about quality. But additionally it shows we care about efficiency. For example, we are efficient in solving tickets simply by sending a URL to the course documentation to solve it. And we use those tickets to improve the documentation. If a user, for example, highlights there's something missing, we add it. If a user doesn't understand the documentation, we improve it. And additionally, because it's on GitHub, anyone can help improve our documentation. So how we work shows we care about quality and efficiency, but most important, it shows we care about our users. And it shows we care about the users because each page has an edit button at the top right. We have a place where people can submit anonymous feedback anytime. Anybody can create issues at our GitHub repo of our documentations. And anybody can submit anybody with a GitHub account, that is, can submit changes via a pull request. Okay, and until now they have all been accepted. A fundamental question I ask myself quite often: do we do a good job? And how do we know we do a good job? So we do all these things. Do we do a good job? I've just showed you and I think we do a good job, but how do we know? So I think that we do a good job, and I'll try to convince you with this. One thing is that we ask in person. So me, when I'm teaching, when I, for example, have an event like the NAVET Beer Club, which is some kind of beer club, a monthly event in Uppsala, I ask users if what they think about the documentation and if it can be improved. And of course, I ask beyond, like, is it really that good? There's a bias here for sure. But also we hear in courses how good our documentation is, and especially when we have people coming from other HPC centers or people that need to move away from us to other HPC centers, we hear how nice our documentation is. Also here, this can be a bias. Another thing is we read from the anonymous feedback. There's never been any criticism in our anonymous feedback. And also our course evaluations, which are public, so you can read most, like my courses that I teach, you can publicly see our course evaluations, so you can check me there. And they often say how clear the course material is and how clear the user documentation is. So still we might have missed something, but from our possibilities, I think we can think we may do a good job. The take-home message is that using your documentation in courses is awesome. If you start from there, everything, well, a lot of things will get better. And you can use it in tickets too, and you can use scripts. But starting with using your user documentation as course material makes your courses better and makes your user documentation better. With that, I would like to end this presentation. So this is a YouTube video, so I can't ask you for any questions. Never hesitate to chat about documentation with me. Email is here. Documentations, this presentation is here. With that, I wish you a very good day. Bye.